married at 16.
Wow, 16?
And I have a 55-year-old son. One of the things I could do was to play music to make money more than I could make on a daytime construction job. So I no longer was a minor. I became a major when I was 16 years old. I could do anything but vote. Got to play with some incredible artists over the years. Les Paul and Chet Atkins at the same time. I really wasn't trying to sell musical instruments. I was trying to sell dreams. And I heard a little whisper and it said, "Trust me." I thought, okay, is this God talking to me, or is this me conjuring up God's voice in my head? You know, and I went in to make my coffee, and this time it was a little louder, and it was pretty bold. Trust me. When I'm playing music, whether I'm practicing or whether I'm performing solo or with an 8-piece band, you don't get a chance to think about anything else when you're doing that.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to come out to Melbourne. You live in Titusville.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a drive. I understand the drive because I drive out there for
Every
church.
Sunday. Yep.
We met at Indian River Church. You are a musician, a very busy working musician. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but let's start a little bit earlier. Where are you from? Are you originally from Florida?
Oklahoma. That's where the accent's from.
Okay, yeah. I thought I detected a southern accent. So when did you end up moving to Florida?
1986, I was in Oklahoma City, and house burned down, and so we had a chance to kind of rethink things a little bit, and my wife said she wanted to come to Florida, so we loaded up the truck and
headed house
east.
Burnt down. That's a whole thing there. How did that happen?
A grease fire, and the way the house was built originally, it had a vent above the stove, and it was a little smoky in there, and so I put out the fire. The vent actually had caught on fire inside it where the grease was, and it wasn't vented all the way through the roof. It was a wood shingle roof, so the flames just went right up to it. Just looked like a cartoon. It just went to the top and went across and just started burning down. Like,
really?
It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I had plenty of time to get the kids out and all that stuff. But, we lost everything.
Did you lose some instruments?
I did not lose any instruments, but I lost a lot of studio tape. I had 2-inch tape that I'd been accumulating for an album back for a couple of years, and that what the flames didn't get, the water did from the firemen, you know. So,
right.
Yeah, we lost everything. When you lose everything, you start from scratch. Things become a little less part of your identity, I guess, you know, because
that's interesting. Yeah.
You know, I don't get attached to things too much other than my instruments.
Were the instruments one of the first few things that you pulled out?
Lucky guess. I did get the kids first, just for the record.
Well, of course, the kids, of course.
At least most of them.
The women and children first, of course. Was it Titusville the first place? And why Titusville? Why did you pick
actually,
Florida?
when I moved from Oklahoma with my first wife, or I should say second wife. This is going to be sticky. Anyway, my second wife and I moved here with 2 kids, and she just wanted to live near the beach. And we later divorced, and I moved back to Oklahoma and Texas for a brief period of time for business.
Okay.
And then I met my current wife, Cindy, and she's from Titusville, so that's how we wound up there. First time I came to Florida, I was in the Jacksonville, Ponte Vedra area.
Okay.
So I played a lot up there. But
so Cindy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Cindy, you do something that I've only heard one other person do, and it's my cousin Scott, who is also featured on this channel. He calls his wife Danielle his bride.
Oh yeah.
And you say that all the time.
Yep.
That's pretty cute. So how long have you guys been married?
We've been together for right at 20 years plus,
okay.
And we've been married for 14. We dated for 7 years before she finally got too drunk to say no. No, she doesn't drink. That's a lie. But it took me a while to convince her to go ahead and make the plunge.
And I met Cindy. She's super sweet.
I'm blessed. I was lucky.
Do you have any kids with Cindy?
No. I was 52 and she was 47, I think, when we met.
Okay.
So we didn't get married until I was almost 60.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 2 from the first marriage. I got married at 16.
Wow, 16?
And I have a 55-year-old son.
16? Yeah. What makes you want to get married at 16?
Well, I'm not going to say shotguns, because my kids may see this, but no, it was, it wasn't planned. We just sort of, that was how you did it back then. You know?
I get it.
Part of the interesting part of that story is actually that one of the things I could do was to play music to make money more than I could make on a daytime construction job.
Well, that's interesting.
So at 16, I was playing in bands with older guys, and in order to be able to play in the clubs, you either had to have your parents there with you or be 21, and I was 16, so they took me to court and they gave me what was called majority rights, so I no longer was a minor. I became a major when I was 16 years old, I could do anything but vote. It only worked in the state of Oklahoma, but I could buy booze, I could go to whatever kind of clubs I wanted to, and not a good way to start your adult family life, you know.
Yeah, right.
Not the best way to start.
You probably took advantage of that a little bit.
Oh, I don't want to say that, but you know, it's just I was 16 years old.
What did you do for work? You know, you said you were a musician, but did you do anything different? What was like one of the main jobs that you had?
My primary career for 45 years, I started out as a guitar salesman in a retail music store in Edmond, Oklahoma. Got picked up as a rep to go to work for a guitar company, for a big conglomerate that sold a lot of different things besides guitars. So I traveled as a touring rep for 45 years. Initially, my territory was like 4 states, you know, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. Ultimately became like a fourth of the United States. At times I would have 17 states in my territory.
Wow,
so I was on the road
crazy.
a lot, and ultimately went into international sales, and so I represented companies in Indonesia and China and Korea, and they kept me close to the music. But the reason I got that job to begin with at the music store is because I like to play guitar. So, you know, ultimately once I retired, then I was able to go back and do that more seriously than I had before.
Were you able to transfer your job to Florida? Did you keep the same job?
The first time I came to Florida, I came without a job and ended up tying up with a company called Midco, musical instrument distribution company, and worked for them for about a year, and kind of climbed my way back up the ladder, because when you change territories, you may be strong there, but you know, different on the East Coast. That job was great. I got to play a lot of music because I worked for manufacturers, and either as a rep or as a clinician. So I was playing music in guitar stores, doing clinics, and got to play with some incredible artists over the years, you know, and just by virtue of my position, not my talent necessarily, but you know, I got to sit down with Les Paul and Chet Atkins at the same time. You know, I just dealt with all the greatest guitar players on the planet.
Who would you say would be a big influence on you in that regard as a musician?
The most awestruck, not only by his persona and his reputation, but by his playing with Chet Atkins. I mean, that guy could play 3 songs at one time. You know, it was ridiculous. I got along well with him because we didn't talk about music. We talked about fishing and life things rather than their music, and they seemed to appreciate that. But with Chet, I was pretty much speechless.
Now, you didn't just sell guitars, I imagine.
No, I did a lot of high-tech products at the time, you know, studio equipment and PA.
Local stores, like mom and pop, or like big stores?
Initially, you don't get to the big box stores till you've been in business a long time and have a reputation, but I ultimately got there. I started out calling on the mom and pop stores. I've traveled all over the country. I can tell you, if you tell me a city, I'll tell you the name of the guitar store and one good restaurant at least. But, you know, didn't get to see much outside of that in my travels. I was in music stores virtually all the time. And again, which is great because I was playing with a different guitar player, 10 different guitars players every day in the stores.
Now, did you find that your playing helped you to be a good salesman too? Because you'd pull out a guitar and say, listen to how this guitar sounds.
That was probably my strongest aspect when I first went into it, you know, and then, you know, with training over time, you kind of hone your sales skills as well. But, you know, my whole thing was just to be a Pied Piper for music, you know. A lot of kids got started out of those local music stores, and that's where I like to be. The big box stores, it was more, I mean, you go in and you do a clinic and they'd have a lot of people there, but it wasn't as personal as when you went into Smith Music in Greensboro, you know, and you got to sit down with a kid that's 12 years old and show him a few chops or whatever, you know. It was good.
Just to feel that inspiration.
There's a real spiritual side to it, and I never wanted to let go of that. The business was business, and you did work on a commission, so you were a salesperson, but I never considered myself that. And in fact, when I'd be introduced as a salesman, I'd go, oh man, I hate that, you know. But I was really wasn't trying to sell musical instruments. I was trying to sell dreams. So it came pretty naturally.
That's awesome. So Cindy is your third?
She is victim number 3.
Victim number 3. After 20 years now, you're third. What's the secret to that longevity?
Not being stupid. Not letting them know you're stupid. Yes, dear.
Yes,
there's
dear.
a lot of answers to that one. No, you know what? We've been through our hard times too, without a shadow of a doubt.
Of course.
And, you know, we prayed through a lot of it. As we did more of that, our marriage definitely got better.
What does faith mean to you? And how long have you been going to church? I mean, has it been life?
Not really. I mean, you know, I had a pretty checkered past, I guess, you know, getting married at 16 and playing professionally with you know, some really nefarious players, you know.
People in general.
Yeah. I grew up in a Baptist church in Oklahoma, and I loved that church. My family did not go to church, but I had an aunt, Laverne, that would come and get us by the ear and drag us out of bed and get us dressed and put a bow tie on us and take us down there, and we'd, study the Bible. And my earliest recollection maybe is at 7 or 8, something like that, going to church. But I did get baptized somewhere around 11 or 12.
Okay.
And, took the Lord as my Savior in the way that an 11 or 12-year-old can,
Right.
After I got divorced the second time, I was celibate. I just I just needed to get into myself, and do some personal healing and recovery and all that kind of stuff. Not drug recovery, but just
in
life
general.
recovery.
Yeah.
And I started going to a church in Oklahoma City. It was a great church. Had a minister that I could really relate to. I mean, he did great stand-up comedy, but he related things to me in a way. He always knew I was coming. Every church I've ever been in, when I went in, they knew I was going to be there that day, because that sermon was on my heart.
Isn't that cool?
So went there for a while, and went not religiously, but with some regularity. And when Cindy and I teamed up, that was kind of part of what we wanted to do, was to be involved in church. So
How has it impacted your life in a positive way?
oh,
Faith
man,
in general.
I cannot even begin to tell you so many ways.
The difference between you before it and after it.
Well, I'm going to let's just say I get most improved. Yeah, I was way far off path. I always had a belief in God. I believed in Jesus, and like to say that I was a Christian, but being a disciple is different. And actually following and saying the words, and the words turning into action, and the action turning into the gift that you get from those actions, and from sharing yourself with the church and with God. And I have a couple of mentors that I've spoken with a few times at critical times, once I started my walk towards faith, I should say. And they guided me through a lot of questions and a lot of the doubts, and understanding that doubt is part of faith. I mean, if you know it, then you don't have to have faith. I mean, so if there's a certain amount of doubt that's...
Now, what doubts in what? Doubts in the faith in general, or doubts in yourself?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I mean, doubts come in so many different flavors and sizes, but I just wanted to have a conversation with God, and I talked to him a lot, but I wasn't hearing it. I felt like I probably took some messages out periodically, and then I had one of those red letter day things. I was on the phone with J.D. Wiggins, a worship minister up in Nashville, and I was saying, man, I'm just so longing to hear the voice of God, and you can't just make that happen. I mean, you try to put yourself in a position to hear, and I think God's always talking to you. You just, until you open up and decide that you are going to recognize that voice. I got off the phone with him, and I heard a little whisper that said, "Trust me." And I thought, okay, is this God talking to me, or is this me conjuring up God's voice in my head? And I went in to make my coffee, and this time it was a little louder, and it was pretty bold. Trust me. And then I went in to do my daily devotional with my cup of coffee, and I'm kind of delighted. I'm thinking, God just reached out to me, and I heard him. And I sit down to do my devotional, and I open it up, top of the page, "Trust me." It was awesome. It was, I want that every day of my life.
So when he said, "Trust me," what did he mean?
I think it was just a general that you just have to trust me. I mean, that, where you're going is good, and if you trust me, it's going to get better. I mean, trust is such an incredible will to have.
It is.
And as far as faith goes, I'm probably not the most qualified in the world to talk about it, but faith to me is knowing that you're provided for, knowing that, to me it is the most awesome, incredible thing. I mean, when I look up at this sky and these trees and you and your beautiful bride and everything, I mean, it's like we don't exist without God. And if you can't trust that, you got problems. I never have a fear that I'm not going to have my next meal, or that I'm not going to have my next opportunity, or that I'm not going to have an opportunity to grow. I just feel like those things are all part of what God gives us, and we just have to open up our eyes and our heart and our ears and listen to it and say, yeah, I accept this,
You're a very busy musician.
Fortunate.
Very impressed by how busy you are. I aspire to be that busy. So you're in, how many bands are you in currently?
Oh, I do a solo, acoustic guitar and vocals. I do that same solo as a duet with either a piano player, percussionist, or a bass player. And then I have a trio version of that. And then I have a 4-piece jazz band that can sometimes be 7 or 8 pieces, and a 5-piece rock band that I play with a lot.
Which we've seen. We went out and saw you
Delgado.
guys. How long have you been a gigging musician where you're doing it as often as you're doing now?
Well, I played a lot when I was young. At 12 years old, I was playing every weekend. Just solo or duet. Never quit playing, but mostly I did solo work almost all my life. I mean, that was the most consistent part of it. And I had a duet partner, Kenny Keefe, out in Abilene, Texas. We were a duet for 28 years, so And sometimes that would become a trio or a quartet or a five-piece band, depending on what the gig called for. Most of the time it was me and my guitar, alone with my guitar.
How many songs do you think you know?
The ones that I keep on my playlist are about 180. And I probably have double that of songs that I have played because, you know, when I first started playing, my first influences were Peter, Paul, and Mary and, you know, the folk genre.
Oh, fuck the magic dragon, live by the sea, sing it with us
And now I'm pursuing the jazz thing, which is another new chapter for me, you know.
Would you say that's more of your style of guitar?
I prefer things that have meaningful progressions now. I like more complex chords and things that challenge me a little bit guitar-wise, besides just, I'm not a strum and hum guy. I like to play parts.
Yeah, and you're a finger picker too, right? You do a little bit of finger picking. Do you ever pick up a pick and use it?
I started out with a flat pick when I was playing a 59 Telecaster, and I was a chicken picking guy, and that's what I did. But as a solo entertainer, you're just better off to be able to play a bass line and chords and some moving parts with your fingers rather than just having one way to approach the instrument.
It sounds a little more full.
Yeah.
What kind of genre do you lean into nowadays when you're doing your solo stuff?
My biggest influence probably at this point, because I did so much solo work, was James Taylor. Just yesterday morning, they let me know you were gone. Suzanne, the plans they made put an end to you. He's an underrated guitar player. He is, in my estimation, the best accompanist guitar player on the planet.
I walked out this morning and I wrote down this song. I just can't remember who to send it to.
What do you love about music? What is the thing that pulled you into it all those years ago?
I love everything about music. When I'm playing music, whether I'm practicing or whether I'm performing solo or with an 8-piece band, you don't get a chance to think about anything else when you're doing that. All music, there are times like fishing when you catch that big fish that makes you keep coming back, and it's not always magical, but there are those magic moments, and you know, you kind of live for those. But also just for the, I guess, the escapism that when you're playing a bass line and a chord and a melody and singing and trying to smile and maybe reading words or whatever, there's not a lot of extra room to process other things in your life at that time. So it really does give you a mental break and a psychological break from all the rest of the world.
How do you feel about this modern day music where they use a lot of backing tracks and click tracks and stuff like that? Yeah,
you don't even want to know.
Yeah, right.
No, you know,
I mean, there's value in it. I'm not. We can't
musically and socially. Every generation is worse than the generation before. And have been a study of the history of music. Big bands, those guys in the '30s, those were the greatest musicians of all time. Those guys were phenomenal. And then came along radio. And there was a time when the only entertainment that you got was going to be playing music with the fiddle player down at the barn or on the front porch or on the back porch or in the living room in the parlor. It was all live. There was nothing but live music. And everybody played something. It might be a washboard or a tambourine or a drum or whatever, but everybody played something or danced. Live performance was the totality of entertainment at that time. Then the radio came along and diluted that. The TV came along and diluted it even more. Synthesizers came along. Well, when the electric guitar came along, was a magnificent thing. A 3-piece band with the electric guitar and electric bass could make as much volume as an 80-piece orchestra. So all of a sudden, all the ensembles that were generally 15 to 20 pieces shrunk down very small. Fast forward to current days, I mean, we got AI, so anybody that can play with a computer can make some music, and it sounds like Hollywood production, you know. Recorded music is all good, but it's sort of like airbrushed photographs, you know.
Yep. But everything
live music has its flaws and its errors, and it doesn't matter because people aren't there to hear perfection. They're here to hear passion. They want to hear a musician that's going for it. And so he drops a note. What the heck? It doesn't matter because he's giving you everything that he's got in that moment. You know, that's what music is to me.
Do you see yourself stopping?
I know it's going to happen
because
my hands are still okay. I mean, I have some issues, but as long as they're working, I'm going to play. And if I can't play with my hands, I'll figure out some way to play with my feet, I guess. But
still sing, because you're a great singer too, by the way.
The voice is holding up okay.
Yeah. Your voice sounds good. You're great with harmonies. I don't know how people do that. I'm always impressed by that.
You know, that's where I live. That's when I grown up with the folk music, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Letterman and all that stuff. It was all about the vocals. I mean, instruments were very secondary, and I still live there. I love to hear parts.
So you don't really see yourself quitting unless you absolutely can't do it again. But we all need a break. What do you do to kind of get away from it all? Your break
nap.
from the grind. A nap.
I don't, I never want to get away from it. I take time away
I
from it.
love that. So when you take time, what do you do?
Volunteer work, work around the house, entertain my wife, just we have grandkids. I mean, we have a good, healthy life outside of the music. And a lot of that revolves around the church. My wife's idea of a good day is a productive day. So, and I'm not. I don't have that gene. I'm okay. I'm okay with going on and chasing some butterflies and doing nothing. It's okay with me.
So, where can people find you and watch you
I'm on
play?
Facebook at Michael Johnson Music, and I play so many places you don't probably have all that on there. But I play regularly every other Thursday at Durango's. I do a solo in Titusville. I had one other thing I'd like to mention real quick.
Absolutely.
I'm celebrating 60 years of playing. I'll say professionally, but for money. Since I was 12 years old, I got my first paying gig. So sometime I think in the fall or early spring, we're going to do a special private show, and I'll post it on my Michael Johnson Music on Facebook or whatever site that I have at the time to let folks know. But it's going to be an accumulation of some great players and kind of take you through a musician's lifetime.
Awesome. Well, I hope to be there.
You will be.
Okay.
I guarantee you will.
That would be awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Mike, it's really
thanks
been
for
great
taking time
talking
to do this.
For Mike, music is his break, and it's also his work, and it's the gift God gave him to share with the rest of us. After 60 years, Mike has not stopped sharing the gift of music. It's clearly his purpose in life, and when you're living a life of purpose, why would you ever consider stopping? Thank you, Mike, for taking the time to share your incredible story of faith and love of music. Until next time, thank you for watching.